Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 131 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm Byron, and I'm here with my buddy Gary. How you doing today, Gary?
Oh, I just feel like a big nerd, that's all.
Yeah, you're always that kind of way, Gary.
Oh, okay. Got to straighten things out here. I'm actually not Gary. This is Barone over here.
And this is actually Gary.
Yep, the original G.
Yep, the original OG. So I just tried to flip things up today. It's always good to flip things around and try different stuff and make your game better. But speaking of making your game better, we have Adam Wheeler on today's show. Adam is a 2008 Olympian, won the bronze medal in Greco-Roman wrestling, and he's also a BJJ black belt, so he's going to be on the show today helping us out, helping us to get better. So incredible show today.
Yep, it's an incredible journey that he's been on from the intense training on the Olympic team, starting wrestling and not really being an Olympic caliber athlete, struggling and coming up through the ranks and dealing with defeats and victories, ups and downs, and then getting the bronze at the Olympics, for his country that's a tremendous honor to have somebody like that on the show. After the Olympics, he really started taking jiu-jitsu like a lot more seriously and really picked it up and took all his hard work and effort and energy and wrestling skill and applied that to jiu-jitsu. So got his black belt pretty quick in jiu-jitsu as well, and he just keeps on going.
Yep. How would you like to have him for your teacher? I mean, you've got a guy who won a bronze medal in the Olympics, Olympic caliber wrestler, on top of being a BJJ black belt. So just a wealth of knowledge can teach you a lot. Yep.
And when you're headed to the Olympics and Rulon Gardner calls you and gives you advice, do you think you listen to that advice, Gary?
Definitely, you listen to that advice.
Yep, and that's what Adam Wheeler, he shares that story with us today too, and he took the advice, and I think it served him well.
Yep, so that is awesome. So stay tuned. It's coming up a little bit in the show. Definitely, like I said, coming up a little bit in the show, you never want to miss one of our shows. So get on our email list. We have a link to it on the show notes. We just need your email address. Every week we'll send you out a link to the show so you'll never miss an episode. We do not spam your inbox, so no need to worry about that. We do not sell your name. The only thing we want is to get our show out to you each and every week. So definitely get your name on there.
Yep, that's one way we could make sure that we're able to contact you if we need to. So if things kind of fail or fall apart, the email is one way to get that thing delivered every week.
And like Byron was talking about, just by having, let's say the worst case scenario happens. Let's say the zombie apocalypse comes. How are we going to contact you to let you guys know? And that's what we figured. If we have your email address, we can get it out that way too. That's
going to be the only thing that'll make it.
Yep. So we're actually thinking, long term. We want to keep this society surviving. So we're ready for it.
Yep. To keep you surviving short term, if you're in your first year of grappling and jiu-jitsu, I've kind of compiled a little audiobook together. It's about 2.5 hours long. Your first year of BJJ, everything from finding the gym and are you ready to train, all the way up to compete, and if that's something that you want to do in your first year, and all the stuff in between. It's $11.99, and the money that you pay for that goes to the podcast here and helps us pay for our costs keeping this BJJ Brick floating. And hopefully it's getting more and more stable.
Yep, and that's one thing I know. If you listened to us last week, we were talking about nerds in jiu-jitsu, and Byron called me a nerd. But the most important thing about being a nerd is the intelligence that comes along with it and trying to make that brick float. So we figured it out. We've got it floating, and we're going to get it even more floatable, if that is even a word. So we'll make sure everybody's safe and above water. We'll keep your head above water.
There we go. Especially in that first year where it's so important. I think that's the highest dropout time, and just due to frustration and feeling like you're not getting anywhere. And that's one of the main goals of the audiobook, is to help you get through that first year and get to where you're actually having some success on the mat, whether that be, actually, doing well, or just some weight loss, or any other goal that you might be reaching for. That's the goal, to keep you on the mat and keep you happy. And that brings us to our quote of the week. A gentleman named Confucius either sent this in or said it. I think probably just said it.
He may have sent it in. It came from Confucius@gmail.com.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
well, that's neat.
I've never heard of this Confucius guy.
Great. Probably, I'm assuming, definitely a listener. But Confucius says, "It doesn't matter how slowly you go, as long as you don't stop."
And, that's kind of back with the old turtle and the hare story. It's, just never stop. You're going to get to the finish line. And one thing I always like that my son's wrestling coach always says is, wrestling is not a sprint. It's a marathon. Jiu-jitsu is not a sprint. It's a marathon. We're always going to be learning. It just keeps going and going and going. It's never going to stop. You don't need to rush to get to different points. Just take your time. I mean, I was thinking back, I probably spent one whole year with the, I had a newborn kid, and work was kind of crazy. I probably spent 1 year training 1 day a week. That was all I could go, 1 day a week on Saturday morning. And I tell you, even though I was only going 1 day a week, I got so much better in that 1 year. I realized what I needed to focus on. I was so happy every time I came to the gym. I was healthy, just because I was only training 1 day a week. I wasn't having a lot of injuries. But the key is, it would have been easy to take that whole year off, or just say, hey, I can only train 1 day. What good is it going to do for me? And really, when I first realized I could probably only train 1 day a week for a while, I didn't really think I would get any better. I thought I'd probably get worse. But, I like jiu-jitsu so much, I just kept going, and I got better. It was slowly but surely, but it just keep going. Don't let anything stop. Just keep plugging away.
Yeah, and that's been a kind of a key thing in on a lot of the interviews on the podcast is, if you can only train 1 or 2 times a week, how do you continue to get better? And one of the more regular responses is to go those 1 or 2 times a week, to stay consistent, to not be frustrated by your maybe the speed of your progress. Another one is to be motivated when you show up. So when Gary was coming in just 1 time a week, he was there to train. He wasn't there, playing around and some of that. He got the most of every minute on the mat, and he made it sometimes, 1 day a week could be better than 3 lazy days when you just show up and kind of go through the motions. If you're actually focused and motivated and excited to be there. It's obviously a little different, but make the most of what you can do. You don't need to quit because you can only make it once a week.
Yep. Byron always kind of jokes with me and makes fun of me because I'm always like the first one on the mat rolling, and I'm always the last one on the mat rolling. And I can't train 7 days a week, so when I am there, I make every second count. I try to find, I'll pull you off the sidelines if I still want to roll. I'll beg people to roll with me. So I'm always trying to find some more rolls.
Yeah, Gary, I'm not making fun of you. I'm just calling like I see it. It's like we both trained Saturday. I walked in and Gary was on the mat training when I got there, and as I was leaving, the mats were being cleaned, and Gary was on the mat training when I left.
So, I look at that, though, it kills 2 birds with 1 stone. I don't have to shower because I'm getting bleached down with the mat cleaner. Oh. So, so I'm actually getting a little more training in and my shower at the same time.
There you go. But you always say that don't forget to shower, and so I kind of found out you're taking a shortcut on this thing here, Gary.
Yeah, but I don't recommend that for everybody because bleach does sting if it gets into your eyes.
Or any other opening.
Yes.
Like a cut, of course.
Yeah, that's what he meant.
That's what I mean. That's what I've experienced many times.
Yep.
This is being weird. It's good, though. I'm keeping that in.
Yep. Hey, speaking, our article kind of, or our quote segues into our article, just get better. Our quote was about keep training to get better, and our article this week is 50 killer tips for BJJ white belts, and it was written by Ojamas, published on January 6, 2015. We'll put a link to it on the show notes, but it's www.ojamas.com. And but 50 tips to become a better BJJ white belt. So, there's always people giving you advice. Some advice may be great, some may not be so great. But there's 50 of them here, so we're definitely not going to go over them all, which would take about 2.5 shows. But, hey, one thing we could do, Byron, is read each one of these and then sell it as a audio book and make some money.
There we go. I think Ojamas would probably have a problem with that, but we'll see if it'll work.
Hey, one I really like is number 7. Don't do things fast. Do it right. And what I see sometimes is your instructor will say, okay, everybody work your arm bar from the guard. And I see some guys just trying to throw up as many as possible, really sloppy. And I see other guys really clamping down, grabbing behind the elbow, making sure their knee is in tight to the body. There's no space. As they turn the corner, they're making sure the person's locked down, and they go over the head. And basically, training sloppily is going to lead to a sloppy technique in a real match or a real competition. So don't do things fast just to get that many reps in. Make sure you're doing it right.
Yeah.
And it'll pay dividends in the long run.
I see it all the time. Maybe not all the time. I see it sometimes that people will do fast techniques and they work. And that's I guess part of the problem is that a white belt can do a fast technique on another white belt and they get the tap or they get the sweep. But when you try to step up and do somebody a little bit better than that, it doesn't work. So it's better to have it done correctly than have it done real fast. So that's a good tip, Gary. I'm going to go right down to the next one. Number 8, never underestimate anyone. In jiu-jitsu, you never know who's hiding under that gi. Just thinking back to a time when I was a blue belt, doing a little competition here, and back then competitions were a little different. Not like it was forever ago, but probably 2004-ish. But there were no purple belts at this tournament, and there was one. He was my weight, but there was nobody for him to roll with. So they put him in my blue belt division, and I'm looking at this guy. He's 17. He's a kid, and skinny, kind of tall. I'm like, yeah, he's purple belt, but whatever. I'll take it to him and show him what I'm all about. Like a little overconfident, maybe. Definitely underestimated this guy, even though he had a belt rank above mine. And about a minute and a half after the match started, I was done. Got armbarred in that match pretty quick. I got swept and armbarred. It was a beautiful combination of things for him. And I definitely underestimated him that day. And that's just one thing. People, you could see somebody who may not look all that physically impressive, and you end up getting tapped. And I've definitely experienced that more than that time, but that's one that I definitely can remember, because it happened in a competition setting.
Yep, never underestimate. Number 12 is a good one I like. Don't avoid rolling with heavier and taller guys. It'll teach you how to react to different situations. And I see sometimes, a lot of times, people are afraid to roll with heavier, stronger guys. They're just like, I don't want to get manhandled, or that guy doesn't use technique. He just holds me and bench presses me or whatever. But it's going to make your game better. You have to go against those people. You have to get experience rolling with heavier guys, tall guys too. Trying to get around those legs to pass a guard, watching out for triangles. So, different type of people roll with everybody, and it's just going to make your game better.
Yeah, I'm going to rewind a little bit here, Gary. And I know there's 50 things, but I want to go to number 5. Promote positive vibes. Don't bring your problems to the mat. The atmosphere in the academy depends on each student. That's part of the reason why people are there, is to have fun, to enjoy each other's company, to train, to do some jiu-jitsu, to get fit, to learn self-defense. But from what I've experienced with traveling, positive vibes are pretty common. It's try to keep it a stress-free environment, and you are part of that. So if you come in and you're having a rough day, let the people kind of cheer you up a little bit. Don't be the grumpy person. I don't want to be cheered up. I'm having, if that's you, maybe probably the mat time would be the best thing for you. But, if you're going to come in and be a grouch to everybody, take the day off and try to find something that will bring you up instead of bringing people down. But really, for me, if I'm having a rough day, the mat will cheer me up as soon as I start the warm-up. So just let it happen and promote positive vibes in the school. And if you see somebody who's down, cheer them up.
Cheer them up. That's the key. Hey, I'm going to go down towards the end of the list here, Byron. 42. Drill more. Before the class, during the class, after the class, solo, or with a partner. And I'm a firm believer in drilling. I love rolling. I think everybody loves rolling. But drilling is going to make it so everything's automatic. You have to know the little nuances of the move, and so that when you are in a competition or rolling with your training partner, your body's not going to think. You're just going to do it. By drilling, you're increasing the myelin. The myelin's going to make everything that much faster. Go back to our Daniel Coyle episode to find out about myelin. But drill, drill, drill. Drillers make killers is what I like to say.
I'm going to go number 50 is follow this blog, and you get more tips. So I'm going to bump up. I like that. And I'll put a link to the blog, obviously, in the show notes so you can follow them. I'll go up one more. I'm going to go up two more. Number 48, monitor your hydration during the day. And this is an easy way to kind of cheat motivation a little bit about your diet. If you're training tonight and it's, today at work, just tell yourself it'll go smoother if you eat healthy and you're hydrated. And it'll help you, have one less cookie or eat a little bit healthier of a lunch or drink an extra 20 ounces of water before the day's over. So just kind of remind yourself that your food is the fuel that you're going to be burning while you train. It's important. It's part of the process here, and it should help you kind of just have that subtle motivation of I want to eat a little bit better than I would if I wasn't training.
Yep. I should have known the firefighter you would have brought up the one about water.
Yes, more water. Big water,
Yep.
Gary.
Yep. So definitely check out this link and check out the blog because number 50, follow a blog to get better. So it's an awesome article, so check it out.
Yeah. Gary, before the interview, I want to mention our friends at fujisports.com. I'm trying out the Sakai gi. It so far so good. It's a great gi. I have the white one. It's got black trim around it, and inside of it there's a print of a globe, and it has some various locations, jiu-jitsu related on the print on this globe. It's really cool, and it fits great. It's washing and drying very quickly. I hang my gis up with a fan on them to dry, and a lot of times the gi will kind of be dry by the morning. This gi is drying. It's like bone dry by the morning. I'm sure the pants are dry within a couple hours. I mean, that's a great thing to have if you're traveling. You want to be able to get things dry and packed away as quick as possible. It's very lightweight. It's very packable. If you're going to go traveling, I recommend getting a white Fuji Sakai gi. That's what I'll be sporting. Check out our YouTube channel for the full review.
Yep, and also I wish I knew right now, but we talked to a guy at Fuji here before, talked about gi care. So maybe we'll put a link to it on the show notes. So if anybody has any questions on gi care, we've got the experts from Fuji talking about it. Yep. Yeah, that was a early partnership with them, and they've always been supportive of the show. And I urge you to check out Fuji whenever you're looking to buy new jiu-jitsu related thing. Yep, so fujisports.com is where you can check them out. Well, Gary, I think it's time to roll our interview. Is it time to roll our interview? Did we get everything? I think we did. Byron, it is time to roll our interview. Adam Wheeler.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
He is such a polite driver, he always signals when he changes lanes. This often carries over to BJJ if he has been driving a lot. If you're careful to watch his left hand before he performs a sweep, you will see his fingers flick up or down to indicate which direction he is going to sweep. Just before he executes the sweep, he will check to make sure the mat is clear of other grapplers. He can sneak up on a ninja in daytime.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Adam Wheeler to the BJJ Brick Podcast. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Super excited. We've got a lot to talk about today. Olympic wrestler, jiu-jitsu black belt, but that's just like a short little snippet of your who you are as a grappler and a person. Tell us a little bit, like a personal history here. Get us up to speed.
Well, I started wrestling. I was a freshman in high school. And if you know anything, you know, a lot of the guys who make it all the way through the Olympics and get an Olympic medal like I did usually start at, 6 years old. So I kind of got a late start at 14. I started wrestling at 14, and when I started, I was by far the most out of shape, chubby kid on the team. Definitely didn't have any work ethic or really understand what hard work was. I did play other sports, baseball and a little bit of like football and the fun sports, but not the sports where I felt like at that age pushed you physically and mentally and gave you that work ethic. Like I soon learned when I started wrestling. Around the same time I started wrestling, I also started just for a very, very brief period of time, I started doing jiu-jitsu at a Japanese jiu-jitsu gym with my brother. And we didn't do it for very long, but just kind of got introduced to what it was. And it was just something that I fell in love with as far as another grappling sport. And, today I'm 35 years old and I'm still grappling. It's just something that for whatever reason, even though I was horrible when I got my start, I stuck with it. And I guess, eventually at least from my background, the pinnacle of my wrestling career is in 2008, I ended up winning the bronze medal for Greco-Roman wrestling at the Olympics. Of course, years and years of hard work to get to that point, and some good role models, and kind of fell into the shoes of some really good coaches. And then for jiu-jitsu in 2014, it was my second jiu-jitsu tournament I ever did, and I ended up winning the Nogi Worlds for Black Belt Masters 1. So that's kind of the highlight for my jiu-jitsu as far as the accomplishments go.
Cool. I've got a bunch of questions that kind of sprung off of that stuff. What kind of wrestling did you start when you were a freshman?
I started wrestling just collegiate style, folk style in high school. Like I said, I was the kid. My freshman year, I ended up winning one match out of 16. I'm sorry, I had one win, 15 losses my freshman year in folk style. And I still remember one of my coaches. He was the assistant coach, not my head coach. My head coach was a very influential guy in my life, and my assistant coaches were kind of talking to some kids about going to wrestling camps, and I remember him looking at me specifically and saying, "I don't think you're ready for a wrestling camp yet." So that kind of somebody not believing, like, "Hey, you're not ready," that actually kind of lit a fire in my, lifestyle, and said, "You know what? I'm going to prove to this guy that I can come back and be one of the better wrestlers, and I'm going to start working hard." And I did. I started working out my freshman year, and then came back my sophomore year and got most improved wrestler for my school. Ended up having a decent season. I was 15 and 15, and just a different athlete. Grew up a little bit, and after that season, I started doing freestyle only. So I did folk style in the wrestling season, and I did freestyle in the off season. I never even thought about doing Greco because, in high school, I don't know anything about Greco, and I don't want to get thrown. And Greco looked really hard to me back then, and I didn't really have any knowledge of it. I thought, I was a freestyle wrestler for sure. And all the way through high school, I just wrestled folk style during the season and freestyle in the off seasons, and whether it was wrestling season or not, I was in the gym lifting weights after practice in the mornings. Whenever I could, I made sure I lifted weights about 6 days a week, on top of everything else I was doing, just because I felt like I needed to work harder to catch up to everybody, and then eventually surpass people and do well. It wasn't even actually until I was 18 years old that I joined the military out of high school. I went in the Coast Guard, but I ended up getting on the Navy wrestling team. And it was just really luck, how I said earlier, that I fell into the good, some shoes of some really good coaches. My first coach out of high school was a guy by the name of Rob Herman. And he was the head Olympic coach for the 1996 Olympic team and the assistant Olympic coach for the 2000 Olympic team. And I was on his team in 2000, so I just fell in the hands of the Olympic Greco wrestling coach. And, I still thought I was going to be a freestyle wrestler. I still thought I was going to make the Olympic team in freestyle. And so I was training both styles with him for a little while and competing in the Armed Forces Championships in both styles. But just because I think of who he is and his background, and we had another Olympian on the team named Steve Mays, who was a Greco guy, just like all the influence that I was around, my Greco wrestling, I think, kept improving, and then eventually I fell in love with Greco. After 2004 Olympic trials, I decided, I'm just sticking with Greco wrestling from now on, and that's where I started to excel, and I think that was a good call for the type of wrestler I was and the body type that I had. I think it just really worked in my favor, so I ended up sticking with Greco from then on out, and then I did wrestle in the Olympics, and then right after the Olympics, about a month later, I was in the jiu-jitsu gym full time. And, I don't do it at the same pace that I trained for the Olympics, or I'm doing it twice a day or anything, but definitely that's my the grappling sport that I have the most passion for now.
Okay, Adam, year one in wrestling looked a lot like my year one in wrestling. Not so good.
Yeah.
I had a similar situation. I came in, I didn't really know how to wrestle, and you're around all these guys who've been wrestling since they were 6, and they probably have siblings that made them wrestle even younger, just at the house. It's just a tough environment to get into. I didn't have a year 2 in wrestling. Tell me, what was the drive for you to have that second year of wrestling, and then also, what happened between year 1, and was it your off-season training, or was it kind of clicked for you somehow to where you started doing better? What's up with that? I know there are a lot of people that are listening. Some of them are wrestlers, and some of them are not having great seasons. What could help us with this transition?
Yeah, so for me, I started my freshman year in high school. I was so chubby and self-conscious that, when I told my mom I wanted to try wrestling, my mom kind of just didn't think I was going to do it. Once I found out we had to wear singlets, and, I was really just that kid that was, I was pretty good at baseball. That was like my sport before that. And, I was always on the all-star teams on baseball stuff. But my freshman year in high school wrestling, I went in there. I was horrible. I couldn't make it through a whole practice. I couldn't do the amount of push-ups we had to do. I couldn't do the running. And I just couldn't do it physically. And I don't know what it was, but I started noticing, over Christmas break, I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure I do push-ups every day. And then I came home from Christmas break, and I was able to do 10 push-ups nonstop. And then by the end of the season, I was able to do 25 push-ups nonstop. It was just something that I knew personally that, hey, it's all up to me personally. And I don't know why this clicked in with me at, 14 years old as a young kid. But I realized that if I put the work in, it's on me. It's not up to my team. I don't have to meet with my team to practice to get better. I just need to do what I need to do for myself. For some reason, something about that type of push, or, just the knowledge of knowing that I can make myself better without, really having to rely on other people. For some reason, that was just something that helped me a lot, and that's something that I kind of gravitated towards that type of sport. Along those lines, though, I had a wrestling, so I didn't grow up with my dad. I know my dad, and I saw my dad a couple times a year and everything, and we had an okay relationship, but I didn't grow up with him. He wasn't, a positive role model in my life, like on a day-to-day basis or anything like that. I mean, I didn't even talk to him every day, every week. I probably talked to him as a kid once or twice every couple months. So when I got into high school, there was a coach who I started getting into some trouble, and ended up actually leaving the school at one point. And he wrote letters and fought and got me back into school, and he really stepped up as not only a wrestling coach, but as like a father figure to me. His name was John Eisel, and he's still coaching and still wants to compete in wrestling. He's in his 70s. But he stepped up, so I had not only something about the sport of wrestling that really drove me to work harder. And I promise you that I lived 1 mile from the gym that I used to go to as a kid in the off season. I was at that gym every day. I didn't have a car. I ran to the gym, lifted weights, didn't know what I was doing. I was reading Men's Health magazines and Flex magazines and getting my workouts however I could. But, I did as much research as I knew how to do at the time, doing some workouts and then running back home. And I did it the whole off season. And then to top that off, on Saturdays and stuff, that wrestling coach who stepped in my life, he started making me go run stairs with him. And we went on these hikes. And I don't know if you're familiar, but there's a lot of really good hiking in California on the Pacific Crest Trail. And, people probably don't think of California as like a place where there's good hiking, but, there's like a lot of really good trails out there. And, I did hiking pretty much every Saturday. And it was just from that point on, it was like, I decided, okay, this is what I want to do. And I want to be a state champion in high school. As a freshman, that was my thought. And, it didn't work out for me. I didn't end up winning state championship. I didn't even end up qualifying for state. But it was just something that I was just very passionate about, and the work ethic that came along with it, and that mental mindset that you don't get that, and I don't see it from, even older, and I'm not. I know I'm probably a little biased, but I don't see people in other sports having that same kind of mentality that I know myself and the wrestling, my wrestling friends to have. It just builds character that I think, like a grappling sport, an individual sport, you work hard, you train hard, it's up to you, really builds a different type of character.
So
sorry if I went on a little tangent there, but
no, this is good. So you were kicked out of school, you left school, or what happened when you were a kid? My
sophomore year in high school, it was that time frame when I was really starting to focus on wrestling.
Yeah.
And I was starting to do good in wrestling, working out hard. But I also started hanging out with some of the wrong crowd. I had some friends that were, ditching school and not getting good grades. And, even though I was working hard, I only focused on wrestling, and I kind of put everything on hold or up to the side, I guess. I didn't really see an importance to anything else. And so I started failing my classes, and it wasn't that I was necessarily failing because of academics. I started missing too much school. I was ditching school. I wasn't listening to my mom for a while. She would try to wake me up in the morning, and I'd say, I'm not going. I'm too tired because I was out, the night before. And, I missed so much school that I didn't get any credits my sophomore year in high school. And so I kind of voluntarily left school to go to a continuation school where, the goal is to try to catch back up to high school, and it's a different way of, finishing school. But I got to that continuation school, and I noticed it was all the troublemakers, the kids. I don't know if you're familiar with Lancaster, California at all, but it's a rough area, and it was the trouble kids, the gangbangers, the kids that you just don't want to be around. And I realized that as soon as I got to that school that wasn't a place where I wanted to be. And so that's kind of when my wrestling coach stepped in and really helped me out, got me back in school, wrote letters to the school. He did all kinds of things to kind of pull some strings, I guess, to get me back into the school. But,
wow.
From once I got back into the school, it ended up being the start of my junior year. it wasn't an easy road for me there. I was then, most of the time at like junior and senior years in high school, kids start getting a little bit more, they have one less class, or some of the seniors at my high school only went to school half day because they're ahead of schedule and all that stuff. My junior and senior year in high school, I wasn't only wrestling and working out all the time, but I went to school full time. I did independent study, which some kids only do independent study, kind of like homeschooling. I did that in addition to regular school. In addition to 4 nights a week, I took college classes to catch back up just because I wanted to graduate on time. So it was like it was definitely a bad thing for me, how I got there, but in a way I think it was a blessing in disguise, because I really had to work hard just to graduate on time. And I feel like I learned a lot from that, because ever since, I was doing that kind of schedule as a junior and senior in high school, along with working out full time, once I got to college, I was taking 20 credit hours a semester instead of the average 12. And it wasn't hard to me because I was just used to that kind of workload. So, I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise and taught me a lot of work ethic. But yeah, I kind of failed, but then as far as leaving the school and things like that, but then I feel like it was actually a benefit to me long run.
Yeah,
in the long run.
You were a kid. I mean, kids have trouble sometimes. You didn't have. Sounds like a real. I don't know what your home life was like, but it wasn't the typical home life. You didn't get to see your dad very much, and then it sounds like you're at this like pivotal point in your life as a kid, but really probably as your life, as a whole, as you're going to this new school, you're around all these kids that are actually like bad kids doing things. And it seems like so many times a kid just gets kicked down the road, give them to somebody else, because somebody else's problem. And your wrestling coach stepped up and campaigned to get you back in school where he knew it would be best for you. And it was, I mean, there's a lot of work, and you stepped up to that. He probably saw your work ethic on the mat and maybe thought that you would live up to that in other ways, and he had a lot of potential. So just thinking back to that wrestling coach, that was a big move on his part, and I think that probably had a huge influence on your life, even as an adult, probably. You think so?
Yeah, and, I try to look back, and, you see some coaches gravitate towards, like, I'm going to help this kid. He's like, the star athlete and whatever. He did it he was just a selfless man who probably saw I was struggling. He probably, I don't think he ever expected me to, become a great wrestler or anything like that. I think he just saw a kid that was struggling. We always got along, and maybe he saw a kid who, whether I could do it or not, he told me to do something. And if it took me 2 hours to get my 50 push-ups in, I wasn't going to stop until it was done. That was just kind of something that I internally had inside of me. And, so maybe he did see that and just knew that, I don't know. I should ask him that one day, kind of what the reasoning is why he helped me out. But he was really just a selfless man who helped me. And, I think, he's always been an influence to me, not only in wrestling, but, I finished my college degree, and I did college after the military, so I was a little older. And the first thing he said as soon as I finished was, all right, good, now you got to get started on your master's. Like, he always pushes you to excel to the next step. He never, so in a way it's kind of like he's always pushed me even outside of the wrestling room. And he still makes me call him Coach, too. I called him John once, and he's like, it's Coach. All right.
That's funny. It's just amazing the amount of influence that some coaches have over some people, and it sounds like it's a great partnership. And you think about asking him why he did it. He did it because my guess would be, not knowing him, but because it was the right thing to do, because he was helping out one of his athletes, one of the people, whether you're a superstar or not. You're in this bad environment, a school with gang members and things like that, and he wanted you to where you would do a lot better and be given a chance to succeed, whether or not he knew you would or not. It doesn't. I mean, he just did it to help you out. It sounds like.
Yeah.
So after your wrestling you quickly transitioned to jiu-jitsu. Is that correct? You mentioned that, right?
Yeah, so my brother is actually he's an MMA fighter. He hasn't fought for a while. My brother actually got lung cancer about 2 years ago and ended up having to get 2 out of the 3 lobes in his right lung removed. So, obviously his MMA career is kind of, he doesn't do it anymore, but he came out to Colorado Springs because I moved out here to train at the Olympic Training Center before the Beijing Olympics. Moved out here a couple years before. My brother came out here to visit one time, and he wanted to find some training, and I knew a guy out here who I thought owned an MMA school at the time, and ended up that he didn't actually own it, but he worked there. And I got in contact with him, and my brother went and trained with this guy named Lee Douglas, who's a jiu-jitsu. He's actually the guy who gave me my black belt down the road, but he ended up training with him. When I got done wrestling, I was like, my brother's like, you got to start doing jiu-jitsu full time, because me and him would mess around and do a lot of jiu-jitsu when I came home, from wrestling. We, for Christmas breaks and things like that, we would train a lot of jiu-jitsu just because it's fun for us. And he was doing jiu-jitsu full time, and I was just wrestling full time, and so it was a workout for us and something fun. I ended up going to a Japanese jiu-jitsu gym here, not really realizing I don't want to put the school down or anything, but at that time I was like, well, I started in a Japanese jiu-jitsu gym, I might as well go back into one. And I went into one, and it was ran by a guy who's a really great guy, but the quality of the grappling just wasn't that great. And there was a couple brown belts in there that were my size or even heavier, and they were very easy for me to just kind of do whatever I wanted to them. And I knew my brother was at the time, he was a purple belt or a blue belt even, and he just had a game that I was way better than what I was seeing there. And so I was just like, man, I don't think there's good enough jiu-jitsu guys out here for me to train, and it's just getting boring for me. And then my brother, of course, said, you got to go into this school that I went in and trained with Lee Douglas and his brother. And sure enough, I did. They're both black belts. They got their black belts from Carlos Machado in Texas, and they were out here training. And sure enough, I went in that gym, and it was I was very humbled by how many times they could submit me, even though I was a month out of wrestling at the Olympics. And, it's just definitely a different game. And got submitted about 20 times that first practice, and was like, okay, this is the place I need to train. And, from then on, it's been kind of history. So I trained with Lee Douglas out here in Colorado Springs. I got my black belt, and then soon after I got my black belt, Lee actually moved away to Texas. So I started training at a different school, Prime, with a guy named Marcelo Mota, who's very, very high-level black belt, and he has a really good school out here, and I started training there. So I had and he accepted me right into his school, and long story short, Lee Douglas ended up moving back, and so I was kind of felt like, uh-oh, what am I going to do? My professor moved back, and I'm training with this other school now. I didn't want to be a guy who didn't show the loyalty and everything, but Lee Douglas now trains at Prime Jiu-Jitsu with me, where I went when he moved away. So now we have a ton of really good black belts in one school, and it's just an awesome place to train with, some great leadership there and stuff.
So making the transition from wrestling at an Olympic level to on the mats in jiu-jitsu, what parts of the wrestling could you bring over?
So I think I told you that when I won Nogi Worlds, that was my second jiu-jitsu tournament.
Yeah.
I didn't want to compete. After wrestling in the Olympics, I was I told myself I was done competing. And I actually So I didn't actually compete for about 6 years in anything. I got my black belt fast for jiu-jitsu. Of course, I had been doing jiu-jitsu off and on for a long time. And, I got my belt fast, but I really feel like the wrestling mentality, like taking the wrestling mentality, especially for no-gi, the top pressure, once you figure out, like for me, it was just a learning curve for probably about a year of, knowing the positions on top, where not to be, and how to defend, and then learning how, okay, I could apply my wrestling pressure to this top game of jiu-jitsu. And I just feel like that kind of grind is a whole different type of pressure and grind than most jiu-jitsu athletes. It's just a different style, and I feel like, that mentality of, I don't know, I know for those of you guys that don't know or never wrestled or anything, wrestling is just a sport, especially in our country, that it's like go, 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 and it's very explosive, fast-paced matches, and you're used to just going and going and going. There's not any real relaxed time. And I think a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, the pace is just a little slower in a lot of people's games, and I feel like by me bringing that wrestling mentality and just go, 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 it made me tough to deal with for a lot of people, and I think that I brought that in. And then not only that, I've competed. I've probably, and I know that there's like memes about this stuff, and this is holds true for me. I've probably lost in competition, and keep this in mind, I have a winning record by far, but I've probably lost in competition more than most people have even tried. And I think just having that experience as far as competitions overseas, wrestling against the toughest guys in the world, the Russians, going to poor countries, Bulgaria, and, not having the greatest setups and still having to compete and do well and stuff. I think all that comes into effect when you're talking about competing, and the nerves that come along with it, and just, where you've been already or where I've been already. It just, there's no, for me, it's just I go out there and I just compete. I don't worry about winning or losing, or, I don't know. I feel like that really helped me because I have that competition history, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I've always said that's a tremendous advantage for wrestlers, because they get so many competitions in a short amount of time versus, jiu-jitsu people who will compete, a handful of times a year at most. Usually, some will compete a lot more, but, it's really not easy to do, especially as adults. As a kid who's wrestling, you're gonna, every weekend you're at another, you got a bunch of matches and you get a lot of experience. And then to make that transition, like to MMA, ex-wrestlers have a ton of competition experience. They're just less nervous about competing in a combat sport versus somebody who's, had a dozen or so matches. You get that pretty quick in wrestling. So, as you travel around the world grappling with world-class competitors, I bet mentally going into a grappling competition nowadays is not particularly straining for you.
Yeah, and I don't feel, like when I went to the no-gi Worlds, I've went the last 2 years to no-gi Worlds, and, I didn't end up winning it in 15. I was having a good match, and I got caught in a bicep slicer from a young kid, who's like an up-and-coming stud, Muhammad Ali Silva, I think his last name is. But anyway, he, long story short, you're right. Like I've competed, when I started, you compete on Saturdays, and you may have, depending on how you do, I would have like sometimes 10 matches in the weekend. And then again, we have a dual meet on Wednesday. So you're kind of underneath, everybody's watching you compete so many times that you just, it just becomes second nature. And one advice that I'd give to anybody who wants to be, a world champ in jiu-jitsu, or they want to do well and get better, even if they don't want to be a world champ, but they want to be better at competing. In my opinion, if you want to be better at competing, you have to compete as much as you can. It doesn't matter if you're competing at a local tournament or you're competing in the IBJJF World Championships. You have to do as much as you can. at least in the early stages. You can't be like a blue belt or a purple belt, in my opinion, and say, oh, I'm only going to do the 3 big IBJJF tournaments each year, because that's not giving you enough. That's not giving you enough experience, especially if you're cutting weight, and you got to really, because that's a whole different learning curve right there in itself. And, you have to compete as much as you possibly can to get better. And that's just, I feel like you learn way more from competing in the tournaments than you do from practice, and not necessarily technical, but just a lot about game planning and how to do it. And there's a lot that comes with it. And nowadays, even for me, who's competed so many times, there's still like a separation between me and the guys, because I did adult. The adult black belt level is the real deal when it comes to jiu-jitsu. And I did the adult black belt division at IBJJF for both the open weight and my weight class. And the one thing that I could tell is like, all right, these guys are competing all the time, where I'm doing it once or twice a year now. And you just can't do that if you want to be the best.
Wow, that's great advice, and you've truly lived that. And as you're talking about your experiences grappling, I'm realizing that I've missed a pretty major part. Tell me, like, the kind of a story or a part of a story from your Olympic experience, being on the mat there and competing in the Olympics.
So I got to go to, are you talking about the actual Olympics herself?
Sure, yeah. What's like competing in the Olympics, and what you expected, what it was actually like, or maybe what happened during the Olympics that you remember that stands out?
Yeah. So, for me, like in wrestling, the Olympics, and in my opinion still, of course I am a little biased, but the Olympics is like the elite event for any grappling sport, in my opinion. There's judo, there's wrestling, and that's as high as it gets. Even jiu-jitsu, I know they're not in the Olympics, but jiu-jitsu athletes want to get that sport into the Olympics because it's just huge, My whole goal, and I didn't mention too much about it, but I started out wrestling and losing all the time my freshman year in high school. I got really good my senior year. I ended up being 44-3, and I was in the Los Angeles area of California, so I was going up against some good kids and had a good record. But I started out again. My first coach was the Olympic coach, but that also meant I started out wrestling at the Olympic level right out of high school. I skipped that college level, so I started out again, getting my butt kicked again, and having to work my way back up, and eventually I did. My goal in wrestling was I wanted to be on the Olympic team. I didn't have unrealistic expectations. I didn't say, oh, I want to win the Olympics. I want to be I wasn't the most naturally, I'm not like the most naturally gifted wrestler, but I'll tell you, I think I was the hardest working wrestler that we had in our room at that time. There was a couple guys that worked that hard right with me, but I feel like I was the hardest working guy at that time. And my goal was just to make the Olympics. So just making the Olympic team, it really, for me, making the Olympic team was like the prize that I've been working so hard for. Ups and downs, lots of wins, lots of losses, lots of failures, trying to strive for that goal, but just, that work ethic that I was talking about earlier, that just, I kept trying to get better and trying to get better and trying to get better. I ended up making the Olympic team. The guy that I had to beat to make the Olympic team, for those of you guys who aren't familiar, at the Olympic trials for the U.S., you have to make it to the finals of the tournament, and then you have to win 2 out of 3 matches, because they don't want any flukes to happen, basically. Wrestling is a sport like, oh, you can get caught in one throw or caught in a pin or something, so they want to make sure that you win 2 out of 3 matches. So at the Olympic trials, I had to go against a guy all the way up until 2008. From about 2005, 2004, I was the number 2 guy in the country behind this guy named Justin Ruiz. And he had probably beaten me 20 times, and I beat him twice. So I was a big underdog.
Yeah.
I was a big underdog, but, I knew I was doing everything right. Like, I was, from my workouts to my after practice, the extra stuff that I would do, to my diet, to everything that I was doing, I didn't like go away from the track to get me to make that Olympic team. And I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think it's important just to emphasize I had a track and I stayed on that track, if that makes sense. I didn't touch a sip of alcohol. I didn't do anything I wasn't supposed to do till then. And I ended up upsetting Justin in many eyes, and beating him 2 out of 3 matches. But in my eyes, it was because, I was confident in the training that I was doing, knew that I had dumped everything into it, and I had nothing to lose because I knew that, all I can do is go into the Olympic trials saying I'm going to do my best, but I really have to be able to walk away if I lose and say I did everything I could. I just wasn't better than him. And that was all I really wanted out of myself, was to know that I put everything I could into it. And this wasn't only for 3 months. This was for a couple years, and this was, let me even take that back a step. This is for, 15 years of training hard, but then the last couple years just knowing that I had to give 100% to everything I did. And so making that Olympic team was huge. And that was to me, that was the hardest part of the Olympic journey, was actually just making the team and having to wrestle a guy who was so good, who had beaten me so many times. Once I made the Olympic team, are you familiar with Rulon Gardner?
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, he's probably the most famous U.S. wrestler. He was a guy who I trained with several times. He was like a generation ahead of me, and he was a weight class ahead of me. So, I was one of those guys that he would go with as basically a training partner once in a while to help out. But once I made the team, he out of nowhere, he never called me before on the phone or anything. We just had practice together a few times and maybe hung out once or twice here and there. But he kind of stepped in as a big brother to me and gave me some guidance as far as, when you get to the Olympics, everybody's going to want to go watch the girls volleyball team and do this and go have fun. And he gave me some guidance that I took to heart. And it was, when you get to the Olympics, you're there for the Olympics. Win the Olympics, and then if you decide to go back and visit China, go back and visit China on vacation or something. Don't go to the Olympics to make it a vacation. Go to the Olympics to win the Olympics. And so, even once I got to China, I really stayed on course of my goals. I was there for 16 days because, we get there early to acclimate, and they were saying that the pollution might affect people, so they wanted us to start getting used to it, and whatever the reasoning is. But we, at the Olympics, I really stayed on course. I didn't go too far. I didn't leave the Olympic Village except for a couple times. One of them was, as a team, we hiked the Great Wall, our first week there, as one of our cross-training workouts. So I got to see the Great Wall of China, which was really cool. I mean, that thing is amazing. And then I went out to eat with my family one time, and this was about 10 days before I competed, and ate some weird food. I ate, they served donkey at one of the restaurants that we went to, and we ate that. Chinese food, definitely, if you haven't been there, Chinese food is not the same as Chinese food here in America. So just know that. There's not, sweet and sour chicken and stuff like that. And there may be, but it's not the same at most of the restaurants. But I just stayed on track and of course ended up, not of course, but the story, I ended up being the only American to get a medal for our country that year. And, I kind of attribute it to a lot of the things as far as just staying on that course and not, not going to China to be on a vacation, and going to China to actually do what I was supposed to do. And, getting the medal for our country was kind of my whole goal was just to make the team, as I said, and getting the medal. And I believe at that time, don't ever think that I didn't, but I believed at that time that I was going to win the Olympics. Like, I had so much confidence in myself and the way that I was training, the way that I was feeling, beating the guy that I beat to make the team who had been a bronze medalist already in the World Championships not too long before. I was very confident in my abilities, but getting the medal, even though it was bronze and not gold, was like the icing on the cake for me. It was like I got my dessert plus the cherry, and I was very content being able to walk away from the sport with that medal.
Do you still follow Olympic wrestling? Like, are you going to be watching it this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I went into the training center about a month ago and worked out with some of the guys. One of the heavyweights who he was a younger up and coming guy. When I was wrestling, I actually had to wrestle him at the trials in 2008, but he was, a younger kid. So I actually went and tried to help out with him a little bit. Cause I'm here in Colorado Springs still, but it's so hard for me just because of my work schedule to get in there consistently. So I'm kind of removed a little bit more than I wish I was, but I definitely follow it. And especially the guys that I know who they are and were friends of mine. But yeah, I follow it for sure. I think I always will. I wish I could be a little bit more involved in it than I actually am.
Adam, if you were to call a wrestler on the Olympic team and give them advice, maybe the week before they head out to compete, what would that conversation go like?
I would probably follow the same advice that Rulon gave me, and it was, I know you've been traveling the world competing for 15 years now, because a lot of these guys have been doing, it's been like a lifelong journey for a lot of these guys. When you get there, and it's in Rio this year, and I've competed in Rio before too, and I know it's beautiful. I know there's going to be a lot of girls on the beaches and things like that. I would just try to remember you're going there for the Olympics. You're not going there for a vacation. You're going to be able to, if you win the Olympics, you're going to be able to afford to go anywhere in the world on vacation. So if you want to come back on a vacation, do that. But go there, win the Olympics, focus, and don't lose sight of why you're there and what you've worked so hard for. Then I would also tell them, the Olympics is a little different than any other event. There's going to be thousands and thousands and thousands of fans watching you. So just be prepared for when you get there, knowing what you're going to see. You're going to look around, you're going to see thousands of people, and you're going to be on the biggest stage that you've ever been on. So just expect that and get mentally prepared for that. And that was, something that was told to me, passed on to me, and I felt like it really helped me. So I think I would pass on that same kind of advice. That's
great advice. And the Olympics is so big, you picture, going there and being totally focused, but probably some athletes do, or maybe even a lot, get there and get kind of in the party mentality of it and get excited by what's around them, and they get distracted at like the most important time in their competitive career, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily the majority of them. I think a lot of them understand what's gone into it, but I definitely think it does happen. And in wrestling, for example, like when I was wrestling, I walked into the Olympic, the opening ceremonies with like Kobe Bryant and Carmelo Anthony. Right? Those guys are huge, and everybody knows who they are. And it made me realize, like, for them, that wasn't even a big deal. Like, they're so used to that being under that spotlight, per se, and getting all the attention and all this stuff. But when you're a wrestler, like, the Olympics is pretty much the only time when that happens for you. So a lot of us we're not used to it. Wrestlers are not famous. Nobody knows wrestlers except for wrestlers. And so to all of a sudden be under that spotlight and doing all these media events and things that just aren't normal for what we normally do, and you're gonna do that at the Olympics. That's part of the whole deal. You just got to mentally prepare for it as best you can, because it's not something that we naturally see. Even at the World Championships, it's just you go, you weigh in, you wrestle, then you're done. It's not. There's not all this media stuff that the Olympics brings. So to try to prepare the guys who are going to compete for that to a certain degree, it's just mental preparation as far as that kind of stuff goes. But they need to be aware of it.
Yeah. So you mentioned that when you're wrestling, you were full-time wrestling. That's your goal. And now you're doing jiu-jitsu more on like a part-time or at least a scaled back. You're not as focused as you were during your wrestling career. What are you doing with your days? What are you doing full-time?
The jiu-jitsu, it is definitely a scaled-back version. More so because, I love the grappling sports. I love fitness. I love the whole lifestyle of it. It's not only about being on the mat, but it's about, eating healthy, eating right, doing something and having a goal to make yourself stay physically fit and active. So, I only do jiu-jitsu. I'm only on the mat about 3 days a week now, but I'm still working out. I get up at 5 in the morning, a couple days a week, go work out, and then I get a workout at work. And for work, I'm on the SWAT team here. So we get, I'm definitely working out about 7 times a week. Whether I'm doing jiu-jitsu, interval runs, lifting weights, whatever, I do some programming for myself. And, I'm definitely staying active physically. The reason that I'm not on the mats full time anymore is because definitely have other obligations. Like I said, I'm on the SWAT team now, which takes a lot of my time. And then my priority is not myself anymore. It's my kids who are now doing sports. And so, I would never sacrifice me being at one of their practices or games or something for myself anymore, because my competition prime per se is behind me, and I still will compete in jiu-jitsu, but the goals of being the best in the world at the adult level, it's not really my goals at this point anymore. So yeah, so I'm busy. I love it. I love competing, but I'm also realistic with what's important to me right now.
If somebody's listening and they're most likely grapplers and into this, but the SWAT thing sounds like a thing that might be interesting for them to pursue as a career. What advice would you have for somebody who's wanting to look at that as an option?
It's if you're trying to do that as an option, I would say just know that, for me, I feel like doing public safety is kind of, it's what I'm supposed to do. I feel like it's, not to sound corny, but it's kind of a calling for me to do something that I'm helping other people. But some advice if you're to get prepared is you have to stay physically fit for sure. And you have to do, like for us, you have to start out as a patrol officer and do that. You just have to work as hard as you can everywhere. Don't just think, okay, I'll start working hard once I get what I want. The way to get into positions, that are a little bit more prestigious or harder to get to is you have to show, at least in my job, if you're a police officer, you have to work hard from the beginning until you get selected, because you get selected based off, a lot of your reputation and what you've done and how hard you work. And I'm sure that holds true to any company. You're not going to be getting all these raises if you're not even doing a good job at the position you're at already. So just work hard. A friend of mine always says it, approach it with a servant's heart. Approach every job with a servant's heart, that you're there to serve and to do what's best for the people that you're serving, not with a selfish attitude that's, don't make it all about you. Make it about the people that you're serving. So whether that's, for me, a police officer job or a firefighter job or someone that's in a private company, it probably holds true for all those. I will say one more thing.
Yeah.
If you do decide to do a job like that, it's a huge sacrifice to your personal life, your family, things like that. But then again, there's definitely people that need to do it. And so if you feel like it's a calling for you to do that, then I would definitely recommend it, because it's a great job. And you usually, at least for me, I could say that the team that I work with is some of the most highly qualified people that you'll ever meet, and that's why they're in the positions that they're in.
It sounds like that's been a kind of a theme for this interview. With wrestling, you found people who were highly qualified, really good coaches. And in jiu-jitsu, you found the coaches that were best for you and very qualified. And the same thing at work. You're around a team that is outstanding, and that's just, it seems like it's been an ongoing theme. It's not just about you; it's about what you're able to help those around you do, and what those around you are able to help you do. And it seems like a big teamwork theme is developing on this interview.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% believe that you're a product of your environment to a certain extent, and I think you're not always going to be lucky and just thrown into that environment. So sometimes you have to make that environment happen for yourself, and what I mean by that is, if you're going to be a world champion in jiu-jitsu and that's your goal, you're probably not going to do it training at your own gym without anybody else to push you better. You might be more out to, the people that usually succeed are the guys who are on teams with other really successful athletes. You're around, for example, I'll just use this as an example, but the Atos guys like Andre Galvao and those guys, they have so many good athletes pushing each other, that, they're kind of going to become a product of that environment, just second nature. They don't even have to think about it like that. They're just surrounding themselves with other really good athletes. And I know that holds true for Marcelo Garcia's gym. I was in New York a few months back and went to Marcelo Garcia's gym, and, they had Bernardo Faria was training there, Matthias Denise, Gianni Grippo. And I can't even think of more, but there's all these guys in that room who are all very well known right now and doing very well. And it's because A, they put themselves there, they're working hard, but B, also you become kind of a product of that environment. And yeah, I agree with what you said for sure.
That's great. You also mentioned that a little bit ago that your kids are doing sports. What do you want your kids to get out of sports?
I think, especially in our country right now, you don't see kids outside playing. When I was growing up, even though I was like a chubby kid, I was still outside playing in the street, football, basketball, baseball. Right down the street, you have to drive slow because there's actually kids playing in the streets and riding their bikes and things. And it seems to me like there's so much less of that nowadays, that kids are just inside playing video games, not really living that healthy lifestyle. And I think it's, there's a lot of obesity issues that are starting among young kids nowadays. And I just want my kids to realize that whether they exceed, or excel at a certain sport, or they're pro or anything like that, I don't have those expectations my kid has to be a pro baseball player. But I just like that sports build character, build work ethic. And I feel like you have to, from an early age almost nowadays, incorporate that being active is very important just for overall health and longevity. And, so I just want my kids to be active and have fun, learn teamwork, and learn how to be coachable, because I think learning how to be coachable transfers in life to, a lot of things, even as far as careers go and stuff. I think learning to be coachable is important.
Wow, that's big. I can think of, some interactions with kids, and you say, hey, try this way. And they almost cry just because you're you're giving them advice that I was doing it wrong, like, no, being coachable is a trait, and that's a great trait to have. That's in being active is, all these things you're talking about, just great goals for your kids, and not wanting to push them to be, it's got to be a little bit of pressure having a dad that has an Olympic medal, but just, do your best, enjoy it, be coachable, work hard, have that work ethic. Is these things are a great way that sports influence kids.
Yeah, like the thing that you said about, and this is just a little advice from me. My son, my kids are young, but my son wrestled in the state tournament this year they call it the Rookie State Championships. And he does not, and of course, I won't tell this him, but he does not know how to wrestle. He's 6 years old. He doesn't know what he's doing. He goes out there, he has fun. Some advice that I actually got somewhere, and I think I read it, but that I really try to do now is when my kid got done wrestling in the tournament, I didn't say, "Oh, you didn't get first place, you didn't medal, you got to work harder." I said, "Did you have fun?" And then he said, "Yes." I said, "I'm proud of you and I love you." And that's all I cared about, was that he had fun. He went out there, he tried his hardest, and, let him know that I'm proud that he got out there and tested himself and was willing to do that, and let him know I love him. And that's all I really care about with, I want my kids to do well, of course, and, as they get older, maybe I will help. I don't want to say push them, but guide them as much as I can. But, I don't want to be one of those dads, and the reason I'm saying this is because you said, "Oh, he's living up to an Olympic medalist dad." Yeah. I don't want that to ever be something in the back of his head, So that's just my small little bit of advice I would say for other parents with young kids. That for me, that's kind of how I approach it.
But okay, he does have a dad who's an elite performer, but as other dads are out there listening to this, and some people are more, aggressive with their parenting maybe, or more just, win and that sort of thing. Here we have an Olympic dad coaching, did you have fun, and I love you. Like that's the coaching that you're doing for your child. I think that's a great example to get kids to have a lifetime of fitness and enjoyment out of sports in general. So that's just awesome to hear from you.
Yeah, and I know that there's a lot of controversy out there of by me saying that, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm the same dad that thinks every kid should get a trophy and all that kind of stuff too. I still think that that's something that, and I'm sure you've heard the people say, a lot of our sports nowadays, every kid gets a trophy and, all this. And I still agree with, you have to earn those medals and things like that. But at the same time, it's kind of let it be something that they want to do. And then when the time's right, basically make stuff fun for them. And when they fall in love with it, then they'll be willing to work harder for it versus making them work harder for it. Wow. That's
great.
Just my philosophy.
Yeah. I agree. Not everybody needs a medal. That does devalue everyone's medal that actually has earned one. A little bit deeper into this, if your kid said, they had a rough sporting experience today, and did you have fun? No, I did not have fun. I'm upset by this, and it was tough. What do you come back and say?
I feel like that's probably the age when they realize, for me, my kids are so young still that I haven't had to deal with that myself, but I feel like when they come back and they say no, for example, and I'm going to use this just because this is what I know, but for example, if this was my kid and it was a wrestling tournament, he says, "No, Dad, I'm upset I lost because, I did this, or whatever." I'm going to say, I want you to take accountability for your own loss. I don't want you to blame it on anybody else or the refs or this kid did this, he grabbed me like this and cheated, and that's why I lost. No, you got to take accountability for your loss. And that's probably the age, in my opinion, when they start having those kind of feelings that you could approach them like, I could help you, and and start really working with them as far as helping them and pushing them to get better. And I say pushing again, but guiding them how to get better and what they're doing. And again, I feel like if it's something that they're really passionate about, then they'll build that work ethic, or that work ethic will kind of come naturally because they're passionate about it. And it's not something that, you're not the dad or whatever. I'm not the dad that's living through them. It's something that they want now. If they're upset that they lost, it's because they want to be better at it. That's something that they want, not you.
Wow. I knew he'd be getting good Olympic wrestling caliber and black belt jiu-jitsu advice, and here we are getting quality coaching and parenting advice as well. This is a very good interview. Adam, you mentioned that you're grappling now about 3 times a week, and I'm in the same boat, give or take, depending on the week. How could somebody who has a busy schedule like us, who is making it, let's say, twice a week to the mat, how could they get the most out of their training every time they show up?
So, and for me personally, I may be on the mat 3 times a week. Sometimes it ends up only being 2 times a week. I think the further along you are in, the more experience you have, the more acceptable that is. As far as you're not really, you have so much experience on the mat, if this makes sense, that you're still sharpening your skills. But with that being said, if you're newer to the mat and you can only make it twice a week to a jiu-jitsu class, I think when you're there, you have to be there. Don't think about, I'm there, but I can only be here for 45 minutes. If you can only make it 2 times a week, try to be there, stay the duration of the class. What I always recommend is, because some of our newer guys, I run a class every Monday, and just because it's a lunchtime class, the class itself goes for about an hour. But we have a lot of people that they have flexible jobs and they can stay for an hour and a half. So I always recommend staying after the class, additional drilling, or if you're injured or you have something small, watch the people that are higher level than you grapple. If Marcelo Mota and Lee Douglas are on the mat and they've both been black belts for 10 years, if they're on the mat and they're training together and I'm there, I'm sitting there watching them, because I feel like you can learn from watching too. So it's just, when you're there, be there. Don't rush to get out of there if you have the time, and, just really, really put everything into it when you're at practice. And I just feel like that's kind of the same with, with anything. It's like going to the gym to work out, but then you go there and you sit on a chair and read a magazine for 15 minutes. That's kind of, if you're investing the time to be away from your family to do something, just put the effort into that time that you're dedicating.
Yeah, that's great advice. You're going through all the effort and energy to be there, get the most out of it, be there, be present, and make every minute count.
Yeah, I know for me, I got my black belt fast. Of course, I had, years and years of grappling or wrestling experience, and also did jiu-jitsu off and on before I actually started doing it full time per se. But my practices were, I stayed after practice, every practice for 45 minutes to an hour. And I literally, with Lee Douglas, my professor, our practices were, we would do the drilling, the training, the technique. Then I would train with pretty much everybody in the gym that was there, or we would do, 5-6 rounds in the class. We would close out the class, and then I stayed and rolled an extra 45 minutes every single day. Now, physically, some people can't do that or aren't going to be able to do that. I understand that. But that was something that I was able to do. I rolled just nonstop 45 minutes to an hour after practice every single day for years. And I feel like that, for me being there only 3 days a week, whatever, that's how I excelled a lot faster than most.
Yeah, that's it had to have a huge effect on your quick development. You've mentioned that a couple times. You got to black belt very fast, and you obviously have a lot of other grappling experience, and you didn't just come to jiu-jitsu one day. You kind of dabbled in it, it sounds like, a little bit as you wrestled. How quickly from when you stopped wrestling did you get your black belt?
4 years.
Wow. That's it. But that I guess some people may see that and say, wow, I'll never be able to do that. But you've had how many years of grappling before that, you think?
So I'll just say that it's been about 21 years of grappling that I've had now, because I'm 35. So I don't know, probably a good 15 years of grappling before that. And then, like I said, I did mess around a little bit in the Japanese jiu-jitsu gym in high school. And also did a lot of no-gi jiu-jitsu stuff with my brother off and on. It just wasn't, like I can't say I had a professor and I was going consistently in a school, and the gi was a new thing for me. So, which it's funny now because I love both, but I really like the gi a lot now because I feel like it's still it's still not new. It's not new for me, but it's newer still. So I feel like I'm always learning still, which is cool.
Yeah. Different options and handles and things to work with.
Yeah.
Adam, you've given a lot of great advice today. You have a website. Tell us a little bit about your website.
Okay. So, I've been a personal trainer. I actually started, the first person I ever personally did a personal training thing for. I was 18 years old. As I was competing in wrestling, I worked as a personal trainer, and fitness has always been something that I've been passionate about. The thing that I didn't like about it was the fact that you have to sell memberships, and you only have, in a traditional personal training type environment, you only have so many people that you can help, right? Because you work hourly, you get so many clients a day, and et cetera. The list goes on. But a couple years ago, I decided that I wanted to start a online personal training website where I could, reach out to more people, do monthly programming, nutrition advice, and the whole works. And so I recently, I tried to make my own website. It was horrible. And, I ended up still training some people and writing programs for people. But recently just decided I'm going to take it to the next step and got a website professionally built. And so the website is adamwheelerfitness.com. And, I really encourage, whether you're a wrestler, jiu-jitsu athlete, somebody that's just trying to get more muscle or fit for that sake. We're going to have eventually I'm going to have some shorter workouts for, people who are on tight schedules, but it's going to be something that has videos, demonstrations of workouts, monthly programming, nutrition advice. I'm going to set a monthly goal for myself that I want all my members to do with me, and also just a blog and just kind of an interactive fitness page that, I really hopefully can reach out to a lot of people and help a lot of people accomplish their goals and just motivate them to be more fit, and that's the goal of it anyway. And I hope that everyone can check it out and see for themselves.
Yeah, I'll put links to that in the show notes. It's a easy website to find. AdamWheelerFitness.com, is that what it was?
AdamWheelerFitness.com, yeah.
Okay.
And it's new, so I'm going to be updating it. I'm going to try to update it daily, and also the workouts on there, the monthly programming workouts. If you're a member, you sign in, you could check out any of the workouts that I put on there, and I'm going to update those every month. So, you can't just, in my opinion, you have to change your workout programming every 3 to 6 weeks, and I'm going to just do it every month to make it, simple for the users. And, it'll be good.
That sounds like a nice change from people who just go and do the same workout routine every day for a long time. You're going to be giving people different things to work on and expand what they're able to do, it sounds like. And that type of thing will have an overall effect on your health and fitness and your grappling.
Yeah, and there's going to be a bonus section in there too, where I don't know if you know this or not, but I've been in Men's Health, Men's Fitness, Flex Magazine, GQ. I have appeared in all those magazines recently for a company called Isopure, and I'm going to put in the bonus sections the diet that I used and the fitness plan that I used to prepare myself for those photo shoots. And so anybody looking forward to just looking good in the summer or whatever it may be, it's going to have a little bit of something for everybody in there. And again, hopefully it could just help and inspire a lot of people that way instead of just a select few that you work with one-on-one.
Yeah, you'll have a more global reach and with a lot more options, a lot more people to be able to help. And listening to you talk today, you sound like a person who is very motivated to help people and to share your story, and to you're just a motivating person. So this website seems like it's going to be a great fit for you, and I urge anybody to go check it out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Is there any way people could follow you and what you're doing actively, like on social media? Where would they go?
Yeah. Again, check out the website, please. And then my Instagram and Twitter are BigWheels96kg.
Okay. We'll put links to those in the show notes as well. Adam, thank you so much for the interview. It's been a blast talking with you. I learned a bunch, and it's just been a great time.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. It's an honor.
Well, we'd like to thank Adam Wheeler for taking time out to come on this show. Just an incredible guy. And I like what you were saying about when Rulon Gardner calls and gives you some advice, you're listening. That's a great guy to get some advice from. Yeah,
you're not – he didn't go to China to experience China. He went to China to win the Olympics. And that's kind of – I encourage you, if you're going to go compete in a tournament, to try to take it almost the trip as a whole as an experience. If you go to California or Oklahoma, or if you go somewhere, have to travel somewhere, try to take in some of the local things of of the environment and of the people, and hang out with your teammates and have fun. And when you're on the mat, business time, do your thing. But really, in the Olympic level, if you're going to try to win worlds, maybe not so much of the vacation aspect of the tournament should be your experience. Go there and try to win the best you can. Don't worry about getting the making a vacation out of this trip. Really focus on things. Try not to have like that party atmosphere with it. If you want that gold medal at a high level competition, that's what Rulon Gardner says. You can't argue with that advice. It works for him, and that's the advice he'd give to any other Olympian athlete who's going to go compete. It's serious business.
Yep, serious business, and Adam got it done in 2008. So awesome interview, and we're happy we're actually excited that we had somebody of his caliber on the show. So thank you, Adam.
Yep, and it's just neat to see somebody who's that good of a grappler do something different. He could have stuck with that and made a career out of that. He could have coached, and moved on. But he switched it up for jiu-jitsu. He loves jiu-jitsu so much. Looking at the long term, being able to do this. He's getting tapped out by guys who aren't Olympic athletes, obviously. But, purple belts and brown belts and black belts were just, tapping him out. And I could imagine if I'm going to grapple with an Olympic wrestler, they're going to probably get my A game, Gary. I mean, because they're going to be smashing me pretty good as well. So just amazing, like, mental side of things for him. I'm glad he shared a story with us today.
And, hey, don't forget to check us out on other aspects of social media. We are on Twitter. We're on YouTube. We now are finally getting some subscriptions to our YouTube channel, and Byron's doing a question and answer there on YouTube. So if you do have any questions that you'd like Byron to answer, email it to bjjbrick@gmail.com, and we'll get you an answer.
Yeah, and we're also Facebook is the most common one. Gary and I will correspond with anybody who messages on there pretty quickly. If I'm out, Gary will we'll answer. And if Gary doesn't answer, I'll usually pick up pretty quick on there. So that's a good way to get a hold of both of us. But the bjjbrick@gmail.com is a good way to just ask a question about the show or send us a question for the Q&A show for the YouTube channel there, my friends.
Yep, and we love hearing from people. So if you got a question or just want to send us an email, send it out to us. Or even if you, like we've talked about before, if you have a article, send it to us. We'll put it on the show. Yeah,
we always appreciate. If you find a cool article, send it our way. If you write one, definitely send us
That's
our way.
Even better.
We love that. Hey, I wrote this article. If you need a place to actually have it published, let me know that too. We'll help you out with that. We'll be happy to post things on our website, or if you get it somewhere else, or you have your own thing, we're happy to share that as well. We're just having a good time over here. In articles, we're always into reading those and to sharing those with the audience as well. Gary, next week we've got a very neat show.
Who do we get on next week?
Not everybody has a move named after them. Not everybody has a move that you can see in the UFC on a regular basis named after them. He explains why it's named after him, and explains why it's not his name either. So we have Joe DRC on the podcast next week. His name is very close to the Darce choke, and he'll tell the story later, next week, I guess. But why isn't it the DRC choke? You'll learn that, and you'll learn. I was like, well, since I got Joe DRC on the show, I'm getting some Darce choke tips, So definitely pried some out of him on that, and I asked him. I said, if I come to your academy, am I going to get caught in a Darce choke? He goes, good chance. I'll try to do that. He's still doing it, so I love that he's still out there getting the Darce choke.
That's his brick. That's his move, and I guarantee you, after Byron interviewed him, I guarantee you Byron's going to be hitting some Darce chokes on me.
Like he said, I will try to do a Darce choke on you, Gary. But yep, Gary said it all right. That was his brick. Getting good at a couple of moves, having that weapon with you is way better than learning a new move every day or every week. You got to spend time and get really good at something and have an actual game and not just an assortment of moves. So that's really we don't mention this very often. That's the BJJ brick philosophy, or the idea behind that is spend some time, get good at a couple of things, and it will pay off in the long run. And it's almost like an unfair advantage. If you're going to roll with Joe DRC and you don't know that he's going to do the Darce choke, you're at a huge negative for not knowing what you're up against. It's like a secret move he has for you.
Yep, and he's going to get it over and over again. So it's just going to make you better at defending it sooner or later. So, but yeah, it's always good to have that brick, a move that you can go to over and over again that you feel comfortable with, and we talk about that all the time. It's let's get really, really good at something.
Yep, and you don't have to get good at everything. Much like if you're going to learn a little bit of Portuguese, learning a couple of key phrases can get you by quite a bit. So if you're thinking about going to Brazil to do some jiu-jitsu, we've got our friend Claudio this week is going to teach us a little bit more Portuguese. This is the fourth part of this segment here. Claudio is going to teach us, staying polite, you're welcome. So somebody might say thank you to you, which we learned last week. We've also learned a basic greeting, like a hello, and we say a goodbye, and then please and thank you. This week, Claudia's going to teach us to say you're welcome, because that's important to know how to say. So here's our friend Claudio. Oi, Claudio. Welcome back, my friend.
Oi, tudo bem?
Tudo bem.
Oh, awesome. I'm doing great, my friend. I'm doing great. See here. We have a lot of reviewing to do. We have, 3 weeks already in the books?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready to go?
I'm going to try.
Brazil?
I'm ready to go to Brazil, but regardless of if I could communicate or not, that would be a great time. This would just make my trip a little bit more in-depth, I think.
That's right.
It's like, tasting the foods, conversating with a few people, and trying that is part of the experience, I think.
That's true. And once you're in a country, too, it's a lot easier to communicate. And then once you get immersed in that culture and the language, too, it will just come to you.
Yeah.
Something easy. All right, let's see. We talked about a little bit please and thank you last time. And we just close that deal with the "you're welcome," right? De nada.
De nada.
So we're gonna that's exactly the word. A little bit different pronunciation. It's similar to Spanish as well, but it will be de nada.
De nada.
Right. Now, this is how you write. That's one of the tricky ones. You write in a certain way with the D-E and then N-A-D-A, but how you say it, it's a D-I in Portuguese, a de nada. So the way you say it will be de nada.
De nada.
Good. Yeah, in Spanish it will be de nada. You say the E letter, you say de nada. In Portuguese, yes, it does spell the same way, but you pronounce de nada.
De nada.
Very good, very good. So you say, por favor, obrigado, and then the other person responds,
de nada.
De nada. Very good,
okay.
Very good.
So por favor is please, obrigado means thank you, and then de nada. De nada.
De nada. That's correct. Very good.
This one, for me, to remember at least the nada part, like nada, basically nothing. How much money do you have? Nada. Like no problem. Like no, that's kind of what
no problem. No big deal.
No big deal. Yeah.
Right, so, something like that. Exactly.
Well, very good.
That's a good way to remember.
So now we're at least polite, and we could say hello, hola, or oi, and then we'll be able to say goodbye by atomized. Please is por favor, obrigado would be thank you, and then de nada would be you're welcome.
You're welcome. That is correct.
We're building our vocabulary, and I'm probably going to get past the point of being able to recite them all every week. But hey, Claudio, I want to put you on the spot here, keeping this fun. Give us one tip to winning an ugly sweater competition at Christmas time.
Well, I recommend you to go to our Fox Fitness webpage, which is the gym I train with our great Jake Fox there, and I'm a blue belt there. And you should go to their Facebook page and look at my picture. I won the contest last time, and I have great tips for you guys that want to win the next Christmas ugly sweater party. I'm not really proud of it, to be honest with you, but I'll give you my secrets, okay? I had to borrow my pants or Spanx or whatever you called it from my wife. Don't tell her that. And then the sweater, it was actually one of the tree skirts I had from my Christmas tree. So I just put it around my neck, joking with my wife. And she looked at me like, oh, that would be a great Christmas sweater. Like, all right, well, that's the costume. So there you go. A few little tips for you guys that want to win next Christmas.
You do have to go see this picture. If you haven't seen Claudio, you're not exactly a small guy either.
No, I'm not. Yeah, it was pretty good. I had a few people laugh at me here at work too, and it's all for good fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Claudio is he's a beast on the mats. I don't know how tall or how much you weigh, but you're definitely one of the stronger people on the team there, and to have you dressed up in such a funny way was quite hilarious.
It was fun. It was fun. Let's see, I'm close to 6'2" and about 220, 225. It depends on Taco Tuesday or not. So.
Well, obrigado for sharing that story.
De nada.
All right. Well, we'll catch you next week, and I'm looking forward to learning a little bit about yes and no, and maybe some how to say good and bad. So should be valuable words to add.
Exciting. I'm excited. See you next week, man.
Okay. See ya. All right, this is Future Byron here. After we recorded this, I decided to go a little bit further with Claudio's Ugly Sweater Contest. So if you go to the show notes for episode 131 with Adam Wheeler, there's going to be a link to Claudio's segment on YouTube. Put a picture on there for you, and the link will take you directly to that point in time in the video where Claudio is standing there with his ugly Christmas sweater. It's awesome. So I think it's going to be kind of fun when he gets to see this, and he'll be up there on YouTube, and it just shows you how much of a fun person Claudio is, and I appreciate him helping us out with this. So we're just poking fun at the guy a little bit. I'm sure he'll smash me next time we roll for this. So back to the regular show. All right. Well, we'll continue on with this segment for several more shows as we go through like the bricks, I guess, of Portuguese, just enough to get you by, but they're the fundamentals, like the words that you would use in any conversation. So next week, we're going to learn how to say yes, no, good, and bad. So very key words.
4 lessons next week, 4 key words, as Byron said, so definitely don't miss next week.
Gary, we're always appreciating people writing us reviews, and what this will do is help get the word out to people who are just searching for podcasts. They might type in BJJ or martial arts, something like that, and hopefully we'll pop up and they'll see your review, and they'll say, this seems like a fun place to learn about jiu-jitsu, and that's really our goal. If you want to write us a review, if you live in the United States, that's great. If you live anywhere in the world, well, welcome to planet Earth. It's a great place, but we appreciate it anywhere you are. But if you live in the U.S., we will be happy to send you out a BJJ Brick gi patch. It's a small gi patch that is just like a thank you for writing a review. These patches are not for sale right now, so it's just how you get them is you write us a review. If you would like to make it funny, we really appreciate that. We'll read that on the air 9 times out of 10. Kind of poke fun of us and highlight some weird things about us, and that's great. And hopefully we've earned 5 stars on the review there.
Yeah, when Byron's talking about highlight weird stuff about us, preferably about Byron. So make sure you talk about Byron as much as possible on the weird stuff.
Yeah, well, and I could, I can't really deny that as like what we're preferring, because so far it's all weird about Gary because he's the weird guy. So if you want to tease me a little bit, that's fine. Kind of evens things up a bit. But Gary, it's never going to be even. You're always going to have more stuff written about you being the weird guy, or having Gary in my pocket, that type of a thing. So yeah, that's just the way it is. That's reality. Sorry, buddy.
Man, I can't win even on the radio.
Even on the radio, Gary. I just don't play fair.
Yep, you don't. Meanie,
yep. Gary, I always like to put you in a weird spot and not just on the mat, my friend. This is the time of the show.
I'm still having nightmares over that.
This is the time of the show that Gary will talk about an audiobook. Not just any audiobook, an audiobook that he has not yet created or finished or even knows the title of. So I put him on the spot, and he'll explain what he has going on. Gary, you mentioned the tortoise and the hare story. This is similar to that. This is called The Tortoise and the Hare, the Untold BJJ Story of Gary.
Well, this one, it's not necessarily an audio book. This one's going to be a Claudio book. So I'm going to work. This one's all going to be in Portuguese. Because I know here lately we've been working on some of the basic commands of the Portuguese language with our good buddy Claudio. So that's why it's called a Claudio book. So what we're going to do on this book is we're going to retell the story, but we're going to tell it in Portuguese with lessons in each chapter. Different pronunciations and, past participles and pronouns and adverbs. So we're going to go over all of that with our good buddy Claudio. So this one right here is going to be a very, very learning experience. So definitely don't forget to check out my Claudio book, The Hare and the Tortoise.
I am a little confused by your title then, Gary. Is it because Claudio shaves his head bald? Is he the tortoise and you're the hare?
Yes, yep. If you notice, Claudio's bald and I have hair. So the hare and the tortoise.
I will put a picture of Claudio. If you go to YouTube, I have all the segments from the Portuguese thing all thrown into one video, and you can listen to them all there. But I'll put a picture of Claudio in the YouTube thing, so you can check them out there. And,
so
picture,
check out our Claudio book.
Yes. But Gary, I was really thinking that the time you rolled with Claudio and you had that giant hair in your mouth that you had to stop everything for. What's up with that?
No, I didn't have to stop. I just flossed my teeth with it.
God.
So, I mean, it was great because I did have, some tartar that I had to get rid of and everything. So it worked out perfect.
There you go. And that's the time that Gary also flossed his teeth.
Yep, it's happened once. Yep. A lot of people have told me I have summer teeth. Some are here, some are there. So I don't have to floss except normally with a rope.
Or a piece of hair you find on the mat.
Yes, yep.
Well, Gary, that sounds terrible. I got to tell you that. I don't support that at all.
No, not at all.
I use dental floss that's recommended by the American Dental Association, and I'm a part of the Colgate Cavity Patrol, so watch out.
So stay tuned next week as we have dentist John Thompson, BJJ white belt on the show.
There we go. Man, we're getting stuff done here.
Yep.
Or Joe D'Arcy, whichever one is more likely to happen. One of the two will be here for an interview.
And I bet it's not going to be the dentist.
Well, maybe. We can't rule it out, Gary. It hasn't happened yet, so we'll see. But I want to urge you guys, if you're here, Gary and I are located in Wichita, Kansas, which is kind of centrally located in the U.S. If you're traveling by or happen to stop in the United or in Wichita, send us an email at bjjbrick@gmail.com. We'd love to get some mat time with you. It's always a good time to get mat time with our listeners.
So, yeah, definitely check it out. Come roll with us, and we'll all have a good time.
Yep, and Gary will not put a hair in your mouth.
I promise.
There we go. Well, it's been a good time, and as always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, different options and handles and things to work with.
Yeah.
So that's looking in the future here. You've got a website that you've given a lot of great advice. What's going to be on this website?
You know what? I'm sorry. I missed that question because I accidentally turned off the speaker.
That's okay because I ask it in a terrible way. I'll try it again because I was really a mumbled question anyway. And then transitioning to jiu-jitsu, that's a neat story. That we all haven't gone to the Olympics and won a medal, but we've all at one point in time started jiu-jitsu, and he started it, and a little bit before man, I don't know where I'm going with this. Let me try that again. But after his, man, I don't know how I'm going to edit the hell out of this. God. Shortly after he, Gary.